It's still looking a bit blurry. My cameraman's teaching, I'm sorry. He knows how it works and I don't. So, this is component 3 consolidation work. This is the assessment 3 of that, and we're on question 4. And we've got a lovely picture of a fish dissection. It's disgusting, isn't it? Remember doing that? So we've got freshly dissected bony fish with the operculum removed to show the gills. How lovely. Oh, they look like slime. Photograph B shows a single gill 30 minutes after having been removed from the fish. Can you imagine the smell? Anyway, there we go. Identify the structures labelled X and Y. So these are the little feathery bits, so they're obviously the gill filaments. I bet you've all got pictures in your practical books of this. And I bet you've all thought, no, I'd rather not remember. And then Y, what's that likely to be? So that's what they're attached to, and that is the gill arch. Remember that they've got, sort of 4 gill arches on either side. So these are the gill rakers. Those little bony protrusions suggest the function of those. They're obviously a filtery system, aren't they? So what might they be filtering out? They filter out large particles to prevent them reaching gills. And again, this should be one of your annotations on your diagram in your practical book. So use the photographs and your knowledge, big assumption there, to explain why fish suffocate when out of water. So if you remember, when we did this practical, you clipped out a gill and then you floated it in a beaker of water, and you might have had to change that water a couple of times. They do tend to get a bit murky. And the reason that we did that was to show that those gill filaments sort of spread out through the water. So we'll start off with what normally happens and then say what happens when you take it out of water. So normally gill filaments are spread out and separated by water. So obviously somebody's taken a bit of a mounted needle to this one to separate it out. But on this one you can see that they just look like a ball of slime. Disgusting. So, but when the fish is out of water, the gill filaments stick together. So, what does that actually mean? So if we had them spread out and now they're stuck together, we've got less surface area. The filaments then have less surface area for gas exchange. You could have put diffusion there, that wouldn't have mattered at all. And what else do we need to know? They begin to dry out, and water is needed for gases to dissolve in. Either way, take a fish out of water, it's going to end up badly for the fish. Okay, so gas exchange in bony fish uses the countercurrent flow mechanism, and I'm immediately just going to put that. It tells you what it is, so you're going to get a mark for that. That's a swine, isn't it? In parallel flows, this is going in the same direction. Blood flows through the capillaries in the same direction. Explain the advantages of countercurrent flow. So this is where candidates tend to tie themselves in knots. So we've got our blood going in one way, starts off with low oxygen concentration, and it gets more and more and more. And the water in countercurrent is coming in that direction. So it's coming in with lots of oxygen and it's losing it. Alright, that can't be right, I've put the wrong number in, that doesn't really help, does it? So 5, 3. So we've got diffusion over the whole gill. Whereas in concurrent flow, we've got blood coming in with low oxygen and the water's coming in with its very highest. So that's 9, 7, 5, 4, 3. Oh, for goodness sakes. So here we've got a diffusion gradient, and here we've got a diffusion gradient, but somewhere there we're going to meet equilibrium. So let's go counter and con. So you do need to think about this, how you're going to do it. You could just learn the explanation, of course. So explain the advantages of countercurrent flow compared to parallel flow. So what do we know? Countercurrent is more efficient because a diffusion gradient, this is where my diagram comes in, diffusion gradient is maintained over the whole gill and equilibrium is not reached. So I'd always put all of that in. I know that's the same thing, but I'd always put it all in just in case sometimes they want, you know, diffusion gradient and sometimes they just want you to say equilibrium is not meant. You definitely need to put this whole gill in. And I would probably put the word plate or filament or lamella, and then we need to explain the advantage of that. So the idea is we've got more diffusion, so if you look here your blood's only gaining, this is why I put the diagram in, sort of just over 6 units of oxygen, but here it's gaining 10, so the blood can get more saturated with oxygen. And all of that I could have lifted from that diagram. That's my like little peg that I hang my knowledge onto of that bit. So I don't remember this kind of thing, I remember that diagram, and that brings back all of the fish stuff direct to brain. Okay, last little bit. This looks a bit more straightforward. These graphs are in your notes. Identify which graph illustrates parallel flow. So where we've got, so this would be parallel, parallel, countercurrent, countercurrent. Which graph illustrates countercurrent flow? So I've got to choose 2. So distance front to back. Oh, I see. Oh, water coming in. So water comes in with the high, so that's got to be C for parallel. I was trying to spot the difference between the graphs and I just realised that it's the little dotted line. And then countercurrent, again this is water, and it comes in with high and leaves with low, so that'll be A. Right. Clearly insert arrows on the graph which represents countercurrent flow. So I'm only going to put them on graph A to show the direction of blood flow and of water flow. So water is coming in with loads of oxygen and leaving with hardly any, and blood is coming in with low oxygen and leaving with more. So there's my two lovely arrows, very clear. Lovely, lovely. Where's that from? Alright, okay. So we're now shifting from fish into something else. I might leave it there and do the separate video. Let me just have a look at the time. Ooh, 10 minutes. You don't need more than 10 minutes. We'll look at the time.